Hey guys, tonight we're slipping back into the murky candlelight of the medieval world to explore a question that's oddly fascinating. What did girls actually look like in medieval times? Forget fairy tales and Instagram filters. This is the real deal. Picture dim stone cottages, muddy village paths, long woolen dresses dragging through the dirt. You're there now, barefoot, standing in the middle of a field that smells like sheep and smoke, with wind tugging at your hood. And here's the truth bomb: you probably wouldn't survive this. Not just because of the fleas, or the famine, or the fact that nobody's brushing their teeth more than once a month, but because surviving girlhood back then wasn't guaranteed. Childhood mortality rates were high, and the expectations for how you should look, behave, and grow into a proper woman were steeped in superstition, religion, and the harsh rhythm of the seasons. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from, and what time is it as you drift into this sleepy rabbit hole? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're a young girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old, and the year is 1274. Your village isn't on any map. It's a scattering of low stone houses with thatched roofs a mile or two from the nearest monastery. If you squint at the horizon, you might just make out the shimmer of a distant castle, or it might just be the morning mist fooling your eyes. Your hair is dark and straight, maybe a little coarse from all the time you've spent outside under the sun. Shampoo doesn't exist. You wash with cold well water, and sometimes herbs your mother forages if there's time. Your hair is usually braided tight to keep out lice. Every girl's is. Short hair would be unthinkable. In fact, how your hair looks is one of the only things that people in your world openly admire, especially if it's thick and long. Your skin is a soft olive or pale beige depending on your heritage and where you live, whether the salty breeze of the coast kisses your cheeks every day, or whether your skin has browned under southern sun. But even for a child, your hands are rough. Your fingernails are lined with soil, and your bare feet are calloused from walking along rocky roads. There's no soap in your daily routine, at least not like you know it. Hygiene is rustic. You smell like smoke and wool, maybe a little like sheep or onions. What you wear depends on your family's status. If your father is a farmer or a cooper or a thatcher, you're wearing a hand-me-down kirtle made of scratchy wool dyed with onion skins or madder root. If you're lucky, you have a linen shift underneath to protect your skin, but most days you just deal with the itch. The dress is shapeless, tied at the waist with a bit of cord. It's always dirty. Laundry is a luxury. It involves hauling buckets, boiling water, and beating fabric against stones. Shoes only in winter if you're fortunate. Otherwise, you run barefoot through mud and snow, learning early how to avoid thorns and sharp stones. And yes, you've got bruises, cuts, and bug bites, but you've also got a toughness that modern children don't quite know. You're wiry, small for your age, and strong in the way only medieval children were, carrying water, feeding goats, hauling firewood without complaint. There are no mirrors in your home. You've maybe caught your reflection in a stream or a polished piece of metal if someone owns one. You don't know what you look like in any real sense. No one poses for portraits here. Beauty is something that's whispered about in songs or church sermons where the Virgin Mary is praised for her purity, not her cheekbones. But your community notices things. If you have clear skin, they say you're blessed. If your teeth are strong and straight, your mother counts it as luck, because you'll need them for chewing black bread and tough roots. If your eyes are wide and light-colored, people might murmur about old souls or second sight. These little traits, things we might not give a second thought to, now mattered deeply in a world where medicine barely existed and old wives' tales shaped everything. Even at your young age, there's a quiet pressure to sit with your knees together, to lower your eyes when elders speak, to be obedient. Loud girls are frowned upon. Laughter must be dainty. You're learning fast that being good means being quiet, modest, clean when possible, and never attracting the wrong kind of attention. These are the early signs of a girl preparing for her future one, that depending on the path ahead may involve the convent, the market, or a very early marriage. But for now, you're still allowed to play. You skip with the other village girls between laundry lines and animal pens. You pluck daisies and weave them into your hair. You might even chase your brothers with a stick and shriek with laughter until your mother calls you inside to stir the porridge or gather eggs. Childhood is fleeting, but for a moment, it's still yours. And as twilight comes and the smoky sky starts to dim, you sit by the hearth and listen to your grandmother's stories. You chew on a crust of barley bread, and your eyes begin to flutter closed. You don't know it yet, but the way you look, the way all girls look, will change as you grow older. The expectations will mount. The scrutiny will sharpen. But for now, you are simply a girl of the Middle Ages, alive in a world that barely remembers you, but whose echoes we can still feel in the silence of the night. Your grandmother's voice trails off in the firelight as your head leans softly against her shoulder. The room is warm from the peat and the pressed bodies around the hearth. Your little sister is already asleep in the straw beside the dog. The day is done, and for a moment, everything feels safe. But time does not slow in the medieval world. As you grow even a little, the changes come quickly, and everyone notices. You're 10 now, maybe 11, and there's a new tightness in your chest when you breathe in the cold morning air. You're beginning to stretch out of your kirtle. Your arms are longer, your cheeks rounder. Your mother has begun eyeing you carefully, measuring without measuring. Soon it will be time to pin up your hair and leave childhood behind. Hair in this world is more than hair. It's identity, reputation, a quiet form of social currency. Young girls let theirs fall loose or wear it in 2 braids down the back. But once you reach maidenhood, usually marked by your first blood, it must be bound, covered, hidden. A headscarf, a veil, or if you're noble, perhaps a crisp linen wimple will be arranged just so. No more running free with your locks trailing behind you like a ribbon of light. That was for children. And childhood is ending quietly like a candle shrinking in the night. And your face, it hasn't been sculpted by portrait painters or blessed with cosmetics, but it bears the signature of your world freckles from the sun, maybe a reddish mark from a long-heeled scrape. No one smooths out imperfections. They tell stories. They prove you're real, that you're working, that you're useful. In some towns, especially where the church dominates, you'd be praised if your skin was pale, not out of beauty standards like today, but because it meant you weren't toiling in the fields all day. Paleness whispered of virtue, softness, even holiness. A tan face meant labor exposure and earthy usefulness. That's not bad, it just wasn't ideal in the eyes of the priest's sermons or the noble's songs. Your body is still narrow, all elbows and knees, but you're beginning to see curves forming slowly beneath your shift. You don't understand it yet, but your mother does. So does the woman at the well who glances at you with a mix of sympathy and warning. The marketplace has become a different place for you, where once you helped carry vegetables and played with the stray cats, now older men notice when you walk past, and you feel it, like eyes pressing between your shoulder blades. Still, no one talks about beauty in the way we do now. There are no posters, no photos, no makeup tutorials. But that doesn't mean there's no pressure. If your face is symmetrical, you're lucky. If your hair has a natural wave, it's commented on. If your walk is graceful, people will whisper about it. But so much of what's admired is what can't be bought: modesty, cleanliness, or as close as one can get, and a healthy look that promises fertility. And that last one, that shadow always trailing behind you, is the most important. Everything is tied to marriage, to the idea that you'll one day become someone's wife. Even at this tender age, the pressure starts seeping in like damp through the stone walls. You hear it in the way the midwife clicks her tongue at your posture, in the way your father frowns when you laugh too loudly, in the way older girls disappear, suddenly returning home in fine dresses, smelling faintly of lavender and distance. Sometimes girls your age are betrothed already, a deal struck over bread and beer, sealed with a nod and a prayer. You don't get much say in it, but everyone assumes you're pleased, especially if your suitor has strong oxen or a bit of silver. Love. That's not really part of the equation. What matters is whether you're fertile-looking, polite, and industrious. You begin helping more around the house, not just because it's expected, but because that's the way you prove your value. Kneading dough with arms that ache, spinning wool until your fingertips are raw. Learning herbs from the healer not out of curiosity, but because knowing what soothes a burn or calms a baby will make you more desirable. Everything is a quiet preparation for a future that's being built around you silently. And in noble households, the shift is even more theatrical. If you were born into wealth, though few are, you'd now be under the watchful eye of a governess. You'd be taught not just sewing and scripture, but how to walk, how to speak softly, how to hold your hands so they don't fidget. You'd be learning French or Latin or courtly manners. Because your looks aren't just about your face, they're about your bearing, your dignity, the way you glide rather than stomp, the way you smile only when it's appropriate. You are becoming a figure meant to be admired, but not approached, polished but distant, displayed but controlled. Still, no matter where you're born, one truth remains: your beauty isn't your own. It belongs to the eyes that assess it. The priest will say your purity is your finest feature. The merchant will glance at your hips and think of heirs. The artist, if you're ever seen by one, might sketch your profile and call it divine, though you'll never see it yourself. And yet, despite all this watching and judging, you still have moments of your own. You still sneak out to the stream and watch the minnows dart past your ankles. You still laugh with your sister in the hayloft and pretend you're queens ruling from a golden tower. You still hum to yourself while plucking wildflowers, pressing them between pages you can't read just because they're beautiful. In those quiet, unspoken moments, your medieval girlhood is still yours. Fleeting, flickering, but real. And as the sky turns from pale gray to the deepest midnight blue, you wrap your woolen shawl tighter around your shoulders and close your eyes against the cold. There's more ahead, much more. But for now, you rest. The next morning comes before the sun does. A rooster crows somewhere near the edge of the woods, and you're already stirring in the straw. You're 12 now, and though nothing was formally said, something has changed. Your mother has given you her old veil, a square of linen with frayed edges that smells faintly of lavender and wood smoke. You're expected to wear it every day from now on. Not as a fashion statement, but as a statement of passage. This is the unspoken code. A girl who covers her hair is no longer a child. She is someone to be watched, to be measured, and soon enough married. You tie the veil clumsily, at first your fingers fumbling in the dark. No one teaches you. You just mimic what you see. A pin here, a tuck there. It doesn't have to be pretty, just proper. Your body is changing faster than your thoughts can keep up. Your chest is fuller, your hips more noticeable, and you've begun walking with a subtle awareness of how you're seen. The older women comment softly behind your back. She's ripening early, they say. Not with cruelty, with inevitability. The way they talk about fruit that will soon be picked. And as you move through the village, you begin to notice the eyes again. They're not just glancing anymore, they're lingering. The baker's son tries to talk to you in the mornings. The tanner nods too slowly when you pass. It's a strange power, this new attention. But it doesn't feel like something you control. It feels like something you've inherited without consent. Something you must now carry. No one talks to you about beauty in this world, but it is always, always there. In how they adjust your veil tighter when it slips. In how your father tells you to keep your chin up. In how your aunt gives you a clove of garlic to keep the bad spirits away, though you suspect she means something else. And what did people even think beauty was? In many places they said it was smallness. Small hands, small mouths, small feet, a tiny waist if possible. Some girls in noble homes were cinched tightly with laces as they grew subtle, slow training to mold their bodies into the silhouette of a lady. But not you, not here. You're strong and a little lean from work, and your fingers are stained from walnut hulls and herb oils. In other regions, beauty was a bit of plumpness, especially in times of famine, which were often. A fuller face and round cheeks hinted that you came from a household with food. A belly that didn't sink inward meant you weren't starving, and that was a luxury worth admiring. You never knew from one year to the next whether beauty would be defined by thinness or fullness. But either way, it had little to do with how you felt in your own skin. Your skin, by the way, was its own story. If you had freckles, they might be seen as marks of mischief or devilish blood. If your cheeks blushed easily, you might be called spirited or worse, lustful. Pale skin was still prized in many regions, especially among the elite. Some girls even powdered their faces with ground chalk or pale lead, not realizing how poisonous it was. But you didn't have those luxuries. Your complexion came as it came tanned from the sun or windburnt from winter. And let's not forget your teeth. Dental hygiene was charitably primitive. If your teeth were straight and white, it was probably genetics and luck. You might have brushed with chewed twigs or salt, but decay was common by your age. People didn't smile wide in portraits or tapestries, not just because of social decorum, but because they knew their teeth were unreliable companions. You didn't think much about your looks, not the way someone today would. You didn't wake up and check a mirror. You didn't compare yourself to painted icons or courtly poems. You measured your worth in tasks completed, loaves baked, water, hauled cows milked. But that didn't mean you didn't feel the quiet weight of being watched. Because everyone everywhere was watching. The village priest watched to ensure you weren't tempting boys with your glance. The midwife watched to see if your hips would one day carry children. Your mother watched to see if your posture was proper, if your walk was light, if you were blooming into the kind of girl who could be married off soon. And despite all this attention, you were still just you. A girl trying to understand the rules of a game no one bothered to explain. A girl learning to braid her hair tighter so it wouldn't fall out of her veil. A girl trying not to laugh too loud at the fair or run too fast through the orchard. On feast days, when the village came alive with color and song, you saw a different version of beauty girls your age, dressed in their best cheeks, flushed with cider wreaths of wildflowers on their heads. You'd watch the dancing, your heart beating with something unfamiliar. Was it longing, jealousy, or just the strange ache of growing up? And sometimes in quiet moments you'd sneak a glance at the stream's surface to see yourself. Not to admire, but to check. Is this what I'm supposed to look like? Does my nose look too wide? Are my lips too plain? You wouldn't ask aloud. But you wondered. In the safety of solitude, you wondered. Because even in a world with no selfies, no photographs, no magazines, you were still a girl. And girls have always tried to figure out who they are in the mirror of other people's eyes. The seasons turn quickly in your village. Spring bursts through the hard crust of winter with new colors, soft greens, tiny white blossoms, and muddy paths that never seem to dry. And with it comes the May Fair, the liveliest event of the year. You're 13 now, old enough to carry a basket of bread to the market alone, and young enough to still be told to keep your eyes down and your voice quiet. This is when the eyes matter more than ever. On May Day, every girl tries just a little harder. They braid flowers into their hair and wash their faces in the stream that morning, believing the cold water will bring beauty for the year ahead. Your best friend ties a red ribbon to her sleeve, and you do the same, pretending it's just for fun, but both of you know it means you're available. Not officially, not seriously, but enough to be noticed. This is medieval flirting glances held a little too long, songs sung a little too loud. A boy offers you a slice of apple he stole from the merchant's cart. You blush. Not because you're shy, but because your mother is watching, and so is his. Even joy must be performed properly. Beauty in this moment is a combination of posture, presentation, and quiet implication. A girl who is seen laughing too much or touching a boy's sleeve might find herself the subject of gossip before sunset. You've seen it happen. A friend you used to play with now walks alone, her eyes down her father's grip, always on her arm, so you move carefully. You walk straight, you smile softly. You let your sleeves flutter just enough to show the embroidery you worked so hard on. Embroidery, after all, isn't just craft, it's evidence of patience, skill, femininity. If your needlework is delicate and precise, people say you must be gentle, desirable. If your seams are crooked, they assume you'll make a poor wife. Your hands say as much about you as your face does. And what of your face now? It's longer, more defined. The baby fat is melting from your cheeks. Your brows are darker. Your lips are fuller. If you live near a court or a large town, you might have overheard the new trends, eyebrows plucked to high arches, foreheads kept smooth and bare. Some noblewomen even pluck their hairlines to make their foreheads appear larger, a look considered regal. You tried it once, just a few strands, but the sting made you swear never again. There is no one medieval beauty ideal. What is praised in France might be mocked in England. What is admired in Florence would be misunderstood in York. But there are patterns, fair skin, soft features, and a calm, obedient expression. And though no one says it outright, your value is being calculated. Marriage is no longer just a future concept, it's on the table. A neighbor's son has asked about you. His mother brought it up at the well. You heard them whispering while they thought you were out of earshot. She's a hard worker, quiet. Her eyes are kind. That's what passes for beauty here. Not drama, not glamour, just the suggestion of softness, of usefulness, of good health and quiet grace. You're still too young technically. 14 is the common age for betrothal in your village, but that doesn't stop the glances. And it doesn't stop the shift in how people treat you. You're no longer included in the childish games. The boys don't throw mud at you anymore. Instead, they pass by in silence, nudging each other, waiting to see if you'll look up. Sometimes at night, you curl up beneath your blanket and feel confused, angry even. Why does everything depend on how you're seen? You're the same person. You still love the same songs. You still feed the chickens each morning and whisper to them, "Little sisters." But the world around you has shifted like a wagon wheel catching in the mud, and now you're expected to perform a version of yourself you don't fully understand. You start comparing yourself to other girls more often. Agnes has the lightest eyes you've ever seen, gray like the sky before it snows. Mary's voice is high and delicate, like the bell that rings from the chapel each morning. You've seen how people look at them. You've seen the way older women pull them aside to give advice, how young men offer to carry their water buckets. And you wonder, do I look like that? Should I? But here's the truth. They don't tell you medieval girls weren't all cut from the same cloth. Some were tall, some short. Some broad-shouldered from carrying too much firewood. Some thin as reeds from hard winters. Some laughed too loud. Some kept their heads bowed so low they barely looked up. And all of them were shaped by the world they moved through, the work, the weather, the family names, the tiny cruelties and rare comforts. No girl in your village looks like the saints painted on the church walls. Those figures are smooth, glowing, perfect, floating in blues and golds, with halos that shimmer in the candlelight. But you know they aren't real. They're dreams in pigment, stories wrapped in faces. Your face is real. It flushes when you run. It creases when you laugh. It breaks out when you eat too many honey cakes. And it changes every month subtly, almost invisibly, like the moon slipping between phases. And that's okay. You might not be the prettiest girl in the village. You might not be the most graceful, but you are becoming something else, something deeper, a full person. And deep down, even if no one ever says it, you sense that being seen is not the same as being understood. Not in this world. Not yet. And so you lie in bed as the May air warms your skin and the crickets chirp softly outside your window. You fold your hands over your chest, not in prayer, but in thought. You wonder what you'll look like in a year or two, whether you'll still be here, whether any of this, the eyes, the whispers, the weighing of beauty like apples at market will still matter. But for now, you breathe in the darkness and you sleep. The summer after your 13th year is the hottest one you can remember. The sun bakes the clay paths of your village into cracked ribbons, and the air smells like wild thyme and dust. You spend your days with sweat slicked across your neck, your linen shift clinging to your back, and your hair long, always long, pinned beneath your veil, slowly dampening with every chore. You're growing. Not just taller, though your wrists now peek from your sleeves and your ankles show beneath your hem, but in the way your presence enters a room now. The way women pause and smile as you approach, as if remembering their own transition. The way men glance once, then twice. You're aware of your looks now, painfully, intimately aware. You notice the curve of your nose, how one side of your mouth rises slightly more when you smile. You wonder if your chin is too square, your ears too round, your teeth too small. There are no glass mirrors, only water or polished metal to catch your reflection, but it's enough. Enough to wonder how others see you. Enough to start imagining what kind of girl you are to the outside world. In your village, there is no concept of self-expression through appearance. You don't get to choose colors or cuts. You wear what's handed down, what's sewn together from old cloaks and worn sheets. But even within the narrow boundaries, girls find ways to signal identity. You tuck a sprig of rosemary into your belt. You stitch tiny daisies into your sleeve's edge. You tie your apron a little differently from your sister's. It's subtle, but it's yours. And yet your looks are no longer just yours to manage, they're becoming currency. You're starting to hear your name spoken in serious tones by older relatives. A fine girl, they say. A good match if she keeps herself properly. These aren't compliments. They're assessments. Your face, your form, your behavior, they're weighed like wheat, judged like cattle. The standard is soft-spoken and hard-working. Not too pretty beauty brings suspicion. Not too plain plainness is dismissed. Somewhere in between lies the sweet spot, the quietly desirable. A girl who blushes at the right time walks with purpose, but not pride, keeps her gaze low, but her ears open. That's the version of you they want. But you're still you underneath it all. You still laugh when your younger brother trips over his own feet. You still dream of faraway places you've only heard about from peddlers and monks. You still sit on the pasture fence and let your bare feet dangle in the breeze. None of that fits inside the box of proper girl, but you hold it close all the same. There are moments when you long to know more about the world, about yourself, about what life would be like if you were allowed to run, to shout, to carve your own place without having to carry it so carefully. But those moments are quiet and fleeting. There's little time for dreaming when the wheat needs harvesting and the animals need feeding. Then comes a visitor. Once a year, a traveling merchant arrives from the nearest city. He sets up his goods on a blanket glass, beads, hair combs, tiny jars of scented oil. You and your friends gather to stare wide-eyed. It's the closest thing you've ever seen to luxury. You watch a nobleman's daughter from a nearby manor pick up a hand mirror and turn her face slowly in the polished surface. She is undeniably beautiful. Her skin is pale as cream, untouched by the sun. Her gown is soft blue, and her hair is tucked in a silk veil edged with gold thread. She smells like lavender and something else you can't name. You don't envy her exactly. Her beauty seems like a thing separate from you, like a storybook angel. But you study her anyway. The tilt of her chin, the softness of her voice, the way she moves like she's always being watched and knows it. You wonder, is that what boys want? Is that what women become? It's strange how beauty is both everything and nothing here. No one praises it openly. There are no awards, no attention, no social media. But underneath the surface of every meal served, every door held open, every whispered rumor, beauty shapes the story. It's the unspoken language of approval. And so you start changing little things. You pull your veil tighter to hide the cowlick in your hair. You smile less broadly because your front tooth is slightly crooked. You start keeping your hands folded in your lap even when no one's watching. You become more careful with how you take up space. You still have days when you forget. When you're into the woods gathering mushrooms and the sun warms your face and you feel only your breath and your heartbeat and the sound of birds overhead. In those moments, you feel beautiful in the way trees are just there, just being. But back in the village, it fades. There, beauty is a lens turned outward, and it never stops focusing. That night, lying on your straw mattress, you hear your mother talking softly with your father by the fire. You hear your name. You hear the name of a man from another village. He has land, no wife, a good reputation. You're not even 14. The fire cracks. The dog stirs. You lie still with your eyes wide open. No one will ask if you're ready. No one will ask what you want. They will look at your face and your hands and the way your dress fits now, and they will decide. But for now, your eyes flutter closed, and you return to the place in your dreams where your reflection belongs only to you. The summer winds down, and the air begins to smell of apples and drying hay. The days grow shorter, the nights cooler, and everything feels like it's shifting quietly, steadily towards something inevitable. You are almost 14, and though no one tells you outright, you feel the world narrowing around you. Your body is almost that of a woman now. The roundness in your hips, the weight in your chest, the quiet ache in your lower back when you've been standing too long. These are new and heavy things. You walk differently. You carry yourself with more caution, not because someone taught you to, but because you've learned that softness draws attention, and attention always carries cost. People now talk around you instead of to you. When relatives visit, they don't ask about your favorite chores or what songs you've learned. They ask your mother in hushed tones if there's been interest. They ask if you've grown into your looks. You are still in the room, but you are no longer the one being addressed. You are an object of negotiation. You've started hearing the phrase, "she's blooming nicely." It feels like something said about fruit, not people. But you've learned to nod politely and cast your eyes downward. That's the safest response to nearly everything now. In the evenings, you catch glimpses of yourself in still water. Your face has changed. It's slimmer, more angular. Your nose seems sharper than before. Your lashes longer. You can't quite decide whether you like what you see. But it doesn't matter. The decision has already been made for you. You are fair enough, strong enough, respectable. These are the only kinds of beautiful that matter here. And still you wonder. You think about the other girls. The one with skin like honey and a laugh like birdsong. The one with dark eyes that make people turn twice. The one with a crooked smile that somehow makes her the favorite of every boy who carries wood to the chapel. You compare yourself quietly to each of them, even when you don't mean to. Especially when someone says, "You look just like your aunt at that age." You're not sure it's a compliment, but you smile anyway. There are no makeup pots on your shelf. No perfumes, no powders. What beauty you have, you're told, is natural, or not. It's simply your lot. And though some noble ladies in castles have rouge for their cheeks or rose water for their wrists, you have cold water, a coarse cloth, and a sprig of mint tucked under your sleeves. You rub it between your fingers and pretend it makes you smell sweeter. The betrothal talk grows louder. You overhear your father discussing dowry arrangements. You catch your mother folding your best shift with extra care, inspecting the seams. A visitor arrives older with gray in his beard and rough hands. He brings a small gift, a comb. He says it's for you. You understand what that means. No one says you're beautiful, not directly. But they say you're well-shaped, strong-limbed, clean-faced. In this world, that's as close as it gets. And for a brief moment, you wonder if that's enough. Enough to make someone kind. Enough to keep you safe. Enough to help you survive. Because that's the real secret no one tells you about medieval beauty. It's not always about being adored. Sometimes it's about being spared. The prettier girls are chosen first, yes. But sometimes they're chosen too young by the wrong people. Sometimes beauty brings risk, jealousy, possession, control. And sometimes the girls who are called plain get to stay home longer. They get to grow up just a little more before being handed over. You're caught somewhere in between. Not plain enough to be invisible. Not striking enough to be precious. Just visible. And visibility in your world is its own kind of danger. Your mother sits beside you one night by the hearth. She doesn't say much, just combs your hair slowly, gently. She pulls out the tangles with fingers that have done this 1,000 times. And as she braids it, she murmurs an old rhyme about a maiden and a wolf. You've heard it before, but tonight it feels different. Like a warning disguised as a lullaby. You don't cry. You've forgotten how to cry, almost. Tears waste water, but your chest feels tight. Not with sadness exactly, with weight. The weight of becoming. The weight of stepping into a role you never auditioned for, but have been cast in anyway. Still, the moon rises. The fire dies down. Your hair is tied with a ribbon the color of ash, and you lie beneath your blanket listening to the sound of your own breathing. You wonder who you'll be next year, or in 10. You wonder what stories they'll tell about you, if they'll say you were lovely, or merely decent, or if they'll forget to mention your looks at all as if they were never part of the story. And maybe that would be a blessing. But tonight, you sleep with the braids still in your hair, the mint tucked beneath your pillow, and the soft knowledge that even if the world doesn't see it, you are becoming. Morning comes early in autumn. The air bites a little now when you step outside to fetch water, and the light slants differently through the trees, sharper colder. You're 14, and your days have begun to settle into a rhythm that doesn't feel quite yours anymore. The world has placed you into a form like a loaf shaped in a wooden mold. You're rising slowly into the version of yourself they've chosen. The betrothal is confirmed before the first frost. No one asks if you're ready. Your father stands proud when he shakes the man's hand. Your mother is quiet, but she smooths your sleeve more often, folds your clothes more carefully. She says little, but when she hugs you at night, it's for a second longer than usual, as if she knows she's saying goodbye to the girl you were. Your fiancé is not cruel. He's older, more than twice your age, but not unkind. He gives you gifts, a carved comb, a woven belt, a necklace with a bit of polished glass that sparkles like a gem. You thank him, bow your head, and try to smile, though you're not sure which expression is safest anymore. And so your appearance becomes more important than ever. You're examined now by his sisters, by the village women, by your own relatives. They notice everything. The neatness of your braids, the brightness of your eyes, whether you stoop or walk straight, whether your hands are soft enough to embroider, but strong enough to churn butter. These things that once had no weight, are now tokens in a silent economy of approval. You begin to wash more often, with cold water and ash soap scrubbing at your arms, your feet, your neck. You rub your teeth with salt and crushed sage leaves. You brush your hair until it shines. You begin to speak more carefully. Fewer giggles, fewer outbursts. Your voice gets lower, softer. Less of a child, more of a shadow. Because now your beauty must be measured in modesty. You're not meant to dazzle. You're meant to soothe. A beautiful girl draws attention, yes, but a good-looking wife blends into the role quietly. The ideal isn't radiant, it's respectable, predictable, unthreatening. You must be pleasant enough to carry on your husband's name, gentle enough to manage his home, quiet enough not to shame him in public. That is the standard now. And your looks must bend to meet it. The veil you wear is longer now, heavier. It hides your hair completely, draping over your shoulders like a curtain. You no longer run outside barefoot in the mornings. You move more slowly, more carefully, like a vase that's been placed on a high shelf. You notice other girls your age being betrothed too. Some to boys they've known since childhood, some to strangers. You trade glances with them across the market. A knowing look passes between you, a blend of fear and curiosity, and something close to mourning. You were girls just months ago, chasing chickens and stealing apples. Now you are maidens. Now you are young women. Now your names are being whispered beside the words dowry and household. No one asks if you miss who you were. But sometimes in the privacy of your thoughts, you look back at that version of yourself. The barefoot girl with dirt on her cheeks, swinging a stick like a sword, hair flying wild in the wind. You wonder if she's still in there somewhere, beneath the veil, beneath the calm voice, beneath the hands that are already learning how to pour ale just right. Even now, some part of you watches your reflection in the water basin, asking quietly, "Is this what I was supposed to become? Is this what they wanted when they said I was pretty?" Because beauty here has never really been yours. It's something other people use to measure your worth, to make decisions about your life. And as the day of your marriage approaches, that truth weighs heavier than your woolen skirts. And yet, there are quiet acts of resistance. You pluck a tiny violet and tuck it into the neckline of your shift. You hum an old silly tune while feeding the goats just loud enough to hear yourself. You leave your hair unbraided one night before sleep, letting it tumble over your shoulders for no one's eyes but your own. These moments are not grand, but they are yours. And then the morning of your wedding arrives. You are bathed, braided, and dressed by a small swarm of women. Your best shift, your cleanest shoes, your cheeks are pinched for color. A ribbon is tied around your waist and rosemary is braided into your hair. The smell makes your heart ache. It's the same scent your mother used to rub into her wrists when she missed home. You see yourself in the polished brass mirror they borrowed from the manor house. You look beautiful, not because of paint or jewels, but because of what beauty means here, a face calm with obedience, a body prepared for duty, a soul bent gently toward expectation. And as you walk through the village with flowers in your hands and eyes fixed on the path ahead, the people smile. They say you're lovely. They say you've grown well. They say your parents should be proud. You nod. You thank them. You keep walking. Inside, you wonder whether you'll ever look in the mirror and see yourself again, without the veil, without the layers of meaning, without the weight of how others define you. But for now, you follow the path laid before you, step by step into the life that has been waiting all along. The first days in your new home are quiet. The air smells different here, more of smoke, less of soil. The floors creak under your feet in unfamiliar ways. Your husband's house is larger than your family's, but colder somehow, even with the hearth burning. You don't have your sisters to whisper with at night. No hens pecking outside your window. Just silence and the sound of wind slipping through the cracks in the shutters. You rise early before the sun. It's expected. You light the fire, fetch water, knead dough. These are things you've always done, but now every movement feels observed, even if no one's watching. You are not a girl anymore. You are a wife. And in this world, that means you must look the part. Your hair is no longer yours to display. It's kept always hidden beneath layers of linen and wool. Some women, especially in wealthier homes, wear elaborate headdresses, coiffes, veils, even small caps trimmed with embroidery. But yours is plain, functional, modest. When you pass the mirror in the hallway, the one with the warped reflection, you sometimes pause. You look older, not in years, but in presence, like someone who belongs to someone else. You've learned quickly that appearance is performance. You are expected to look calm, tidy, modest. Your cheeks should glow with health, but never flush with excitement. Your dress should fit well, but never cling. Your walk should be graceful, but not proud. Even the way you set your hands in your lap at supper is being measured. And you do your best. You scrub your face with wool cloth and cold well water each morning. You brush your teeth with salt. You keep your nails short and clean. You avoid loud laughter. You learn to speak in quiet tones, especially when guests are present. You become in many ways invisible, in all the right ways, Because beauty now is about control. When you were a girl, beauty was something people looked at. Now it's something they expect you to maintain. Not for your own sake, but to reflect well on your husband. A neat, respectable wife means a man of good fortune. A clean, well-presented household reflects piety and discipline. Your appearance is no longer about attraction, it's about reputation. And there's pressure in that. Some days you feel it tightening like a string beneath your ribs. When you wake up with a blemish, you worry what your mother-in-law will think. When your hair escapes your veil by midday, you wonder if your neighbors will whisper. When your hands grow calloused from milking goats and stirring porridge, you worry they'll say you're becoming coarse. Because women here are not allowed to slip. A man may grow rounder with age, may carry the scent of ale on his breath, or stains on his tunic, and no one says much. But a woman must remain composed, pleasant, presentable, always. And yet you find small moments of defiance. You stitch a flower into the hem of your apron, not large, not showy, just enough to remind yourself that you have a hand in your own appearance. You save a bit of rose water gifted by a passing merchant and dab it onto your collar. You wear the blue ribbon your sister gave you hidden under your outer skirt, just to feel like you're still connected to something before all this. Because while others may define your looks in terms of duty, you are still looking at yourself through your own eyes. And some mornings in the flicker of the hearth, before anyone else rises, you catch your reflection in a pan of still water. You see a face that is tired, yes, but strong. A face that has learned to adapt. A girl still visible under layers of linen and years. You remember how once in the back fields of your childhood home you and your cousin played dress-up with old tablecloths and wildflowers. You pretended to be queens and witches dancing barefoot and shrieking with laughter. You remember how free your body felt, how unaware you were of the way you looked. And sometimes even now, when no one is watching you, untie your veil. You let your hair fall. You touch your own face with your fingertips and try to remember who you were before all this became a role. It's not that you hate the way you look now. It's just that it no longer feels like something you created. It's something you inherited, something you perform. And deep down you wonder if any woman in your world ever really gets to define beauty on her own terms. Still, the days go on. You walk to market with a basket on your hip, nodding politely to the baker, the smith, the older women, who watch your every step. You hear someone whisper behind you, "She's a good-looking one, King. Keeps her house well." And you don't know if that's praise or surveillance. Maybe both. But as the leaves begin to fall and the wind grows sharper, you find a strange comfort in the routine. You know what's expected of you now. And sometimes there's peace in meeting those expectations, at least for a while. You still think sometimes about the girl you were, the one with bare feet and wild hair. But you don't long for her return. You carry her inside you like a quiet ember glowing just beneath the skin. The first winter in your new home arrives with a kind of stillness that wraps around the village like wool. Snow settles on the thatched roofs. The trees stand bare and motionless, and the sun lingers low and faint in the sky like it's too tired to rise properly. You wear heavier dresses now, layered linen and wool, that weigh down your steps and hide your form completely. And still how you look remains a quiet concern for everyone around you. Not for beauty's sake, but for what beauty represents. In these cold months, a healthy flush in your cheeks is read as a sign of strength. A woman who doesn't shiver. A woman who eats well enough to stay round through the lean days. Thinness is not admired here. It means illness, hunger, weakness. You learn quickly that your appearance must reflect abundance, not indulgence, but the sturdy kind of resilience that helps you survive the bitterest mornings. The men in the village are growing beards now, wrapping themselves in furs and coarse cloaks. But your face must remain smooth, your veil clean, your posture straight. Even in hardship, you are expected to be composed. Your beauty is not allowed to suffer with the seasons. Sometimes, when no one is near you, catch sight of yourself in the frost-dimmed window and hardly recognize the person staring back. You look older now, less like the girl who chased geese through puddles, and more like the portraits painted on church walls, solemn, still veiled. You look devout, respectable, womanly. But you don't always feel it. Inside, you still wonder, is this the only version of me that's allowed to exist? You start to notice how much labor goes into being proper. The effort of keeping your garments clean despite the mud. The time spent binding your hair beneath a coif that never quite sits right. The discipline of eating modestly even when your belly aches with hunger, because gluttony is frowned upon, especially in women. Everything is a performance. Everything must be just so. Even your hands cracked from the cold are scrutinized. Your mother-in-law clucks her tongue and suggests rubbing goose fat into them at night. No man wants a wife with butcher's fingers, she says, half joking. You nod, smile, and add it to the growing list of unspoken rules that tether your body to its role. Still, there are moments rare but real when you see yourself through your own eyes again. You walk into the woods to gather firewood one afternoon, and for a few blissful minutes, there is no one watching. You pull off your mittens, breathe steam into the air, and tilt your face toward the pale sky. The snowflakes that fall onto your cheeks feel like kisses. You lift your veil just a little to let your scalp breathe. Your hair tumbles out, tangled but alive. In that quiet moment, you're no one's wife, no one's daughter, no one's reflection. You're just you. You return home, cheeks red from the cold, lashes damp with melted frost, and you catch your husband looking at you. Not with lust, not with pride, but with a kind of quiet awe. You wonder what he sees. You wonder if even for a moment he sees the same girl you do. That night, as you soak your feet in warm water and rub balm into your fingers, you think about the strange path your body has walked. How your appearance has always been someone else's measurement. A tool for marriage, a sign of morality, a source of shame or approval, but never quite your own. And yet you've endured. You've learned to carry yourself with a grace that no one taught you. You've adapted to the rhythm of your days. You've even learned to find comfort in the repetition of grooming, not for others, but because it reminds you that you still exist, that your body is still your own, even when it feels invisible. Some nights when the wind howls through the shutters and the fire burns low, you sit with a bit of glass in your lap, your only real mirror. You trace the curve of your jaw, the shadow beneath your eyes, the slope of your nose, not to judge but to memorize. Because in a world that never asks what you see, you've learned to answer quietly for yourself. Spring returns slowly and shyly at first. The snow thaws into streams that wind down hillsides, soaking the earth and filling the air with the smell of mud and moss. Buds form on branches. Lambs bleat from distant pastures. You are 15 now, a year married. And you've changed, not just in age, but in presence. You no longer move as tentatively through your husband's home. Your hands know where everything belongs. You no longer flinch at the creak of the front door. You've begun to grow into your role not with joy necessarily, but with familiarity. And your face reflects that. There's a stillness in your expression now. a quiet strength. Your cheeks are less full, your eyes more alert. You've begun to understand the power of expression in silence, how a raised eyebrow, a down-turned gaze, a steady blink can say more than words. Because words aren't always safe, but looks you can control. People in the village see you differently now, too. No longer a girl, not quite a matron. You exist in a quiet space between. And in this space, beauty becomes something different once again. No longer for selection or ceremony. Not for courtship, but for status. A well-kept wife reflects a well-run home, so you make sure your veil is clean. You trim loose threads from your sleeves. You keep your cheeks brushed with cold water every morning, and your hair even unseen brushed until it gleams beneath the linen. If a corner of your coif slips out of place in public, you feel the heat rise in your neck before anyone can speak. Because even now, you are being observed. You always are. But the judgment is quieter, more passive. It comes in glances, in the way the baker hands you bread with or without a smile, in how the priest nods when you pass. Your appearance no longer invites comment, it invites expectation. You are supposed to be consistent now, predictable. A woman whose beauty is seen in the smoothness of her tasks, not the softness of her skin. And still, in rare moments, you remember that there was once a time when beauty felt like something closer to wonder. When it meant wildflowers in your braid, or catching your reflection in the surface of a bucket and laughing. You miss that version of yourself sometimes. The girl who didn't yet know that she would be folded into this system, this slow grind of growing up. But you don't grieve her anymore. You carry her. She lingers in the way you sing softly while stirring soup, in the way you pause to pick a violet by the roadside, in the way you sometimes braid your hair even when no one will see it, just for yourself. And that brings a certain kind of peace, because now you understand that beauty in your world is less about looking different and more about looking right. Right for your station, right for your season, right for your role, and you've learned to fit yourself into that outline without vanishing inside it. Still, every now and then you see girls in the village who are just now entering the space you left behind. Girls of 12 or 13, their dresses still a bit too long, their voices still full of questions. You watch them from your doorstep or across the market square and feel a strange ache in your chest. Not jealousy, not regret, but recognition. You see one now, her cheeks round, her hair loose, her laugh careless. She skips beside her sister with a bundle of herbs in one hand and a smear of dirt on her cheek. You know her type. You were her. And for a moment you smile. You want to tell her your body will change. Your face will sharpen. People will look at you differently. They'll say things they won't explain. They'll make decisions for you. And one day you'll look in the mirror and not see a child anymore, but someone who has endured. But you don't say anything. You just nod gently as she passes, as someone once nodded to you. Later that evening, you sit by the fire turning a piece of embroidery in your lap. It's not for a festival, not for a dowry, not for trade. It's just a cloth with your initials and a row of tiny violets stitched in purple thread. You run your fingers over it and think, I still belong to me somewhere under all this. The room glows amber in the firelight. The wind pushes gently against the shutters. And once again, you allow yourself a moment of softness, a moment of stillness, and a moment of beauty that no one else needs to see to make it real. The days lengthen again. Rain becomes more frequent, soaking the fields and washing the dust from the shutters. Your hands are more calloused now. Your back aches in a way that doesn't go away after a night's sleep. You're 16 and you've grown into your body with a quiet sort of dignity, not because you chose to, but because that's what the world expected. There's a sturdiness to you now, a weight in your presence. Not heaviness, but gravity. You no longer shrink when someone glances your way. You no longer fumble with your veil or worry over freckles blooming on your nose in springtime. You've made peace with the way your face appears in the water basin each morning. It no longer surprises you. It's just you, and that's enough. Your beauty, as it was once judged, has become background. You're not the new bride anymore, not the fresh-faced girl with ribboned sleeves. You are something else now, a rhythm, a fixture, a familiar part of the village landscape. And in this role, beauty takes on a different shape, usefulness. You are admired not for the way your features fit together, but for the way you manage the home-baked bread, evenly clean wounds, gently smile in church, and keep your voice calm when others panic. These things are not praised aloud, but they are noticed. And that noticing is its own kind of power. But even now, you still carry the echoes of those old questions. You still wonder, at least sometimes, what it would have been like to live in a world where your appearance didn't mean quite so much, where a girl could just be without the veil of expectation draped over every inch of her. Because even in the quiet peace of your routine, you still catch glimpses of that tension. When a traveling merchant's wife arrives in silk shoes, and the younger girls crowd around her whispering. When the Lord's steward rides through town, and all the village wives adjust their hoods and smooth their aprons. When your friend, now with 2 children, jokes that her husband hasn't looked at her the same since her hair started graying at the temples. It's always there. That sense that your worth even now is tethered in part to how others see you. Whether they think you're aging well, whether they think you've kept your figure, whether they still think your face is soft, your posture straight, your hand feminine enough. You don't mind aging, not really. But you feel the pressure tighten as the girls who were once too young to notice now begin to bloom. You see how eyes begin to pass over you in favor of them. How your own beauty, once a candle lit in the center of the room, is now more like a coal beneath the ash. Still burning, but quiet. Expected. Dimmed. And yet you've learned something the younger girls haven't yet realized. You've learned that there's more than one kind of beauty. There's the obvious kind, cheeks flushed with youth. A laugh like fresh apple's hair that gleams like flax. But then there's the kind that only reveals itself slowly. The beauty of resilience, of steadiness, of a woman who holds the world together without needing to shine brightly to do so. You've also learned how to see others differently. You now notice the elegance in your neighbor's walk, even though her face is weathered. The quiet power in the healer's worn hands. The grace in the widow's voice when she tells stories that make the children stop fidgeting. And maybe, just maybe, you've started seeing those things in yourself, too. There are lines at the corners of your eyes now, but they're there because you've smiled, because you've squinted into the sun in the fields, because you've stayed up late with someone who needed comfort and greeted the morning without complaint. There's a strength in your arms that wasn't there at 12, a steadiness in your voice, a sense of peace in the way you brush your hair each morning, not for show, but as a quiet act of self-care. And one day, as you pass by a group of girls whispering and giggling near the well, one of them glances your way. She says nothing, but her eyes linger not out of mockery or jealousy, but curiosity. Like she sees something in you she doesn't quite understand yet. You smile gently, and she smiles back. Maybe that's what it is you think. Maybe beauty isn't something you carry on your skin. Maybe it's something that grows within you and becomes visible only to those who know how to look deeper. As dusk settles over the rooftops and the bells from the monastery toll across the hills, you pull your shawl around your shoulders and head home. The evening wind presses gently against your cheeks, and you pause for a moment, tilting your face into it, not to be seen, but simply to feel. And in that quiet moment, you realize no one has to witness it for it to be real. You are here. You are still becoming. And you are beautiful in ways the world may never name. The days slide into each other, now woven tightly like the fabric you fold each morning. You're 17, and your routines feel carved into stone. You wake before the sun, you tend the hearth, you pour water from the same heavy jug into the same basin, and you meet your own reflection with a familiarity that feels almost indifferent. Your face is no longer something to worry over, it's simply part of the morning. The same as feeding the chickens, the same as kneading bread. It's a face that has learned to belong to this life. And yet sometimes in those quiet pre-dawn hours you pause. You catch yourself looking closer, searching for something. What is it you're trying to find? Perhaps it's a memory of the girl you used to be, or a question still unanswered. Who am I when no one is watching? You don't wear flowers in your hair anymore. That was a girl's thing. Now your veil is practical, pinned without fuss. But every now and then, when you're walking along the edge of the pasture and no one's with you, you stop to pick a bloom, a daisy, a wild rose, even a crooked dandelion, and you tuck it behind your ear for just a minute, smiling to yourself like it's a secret. Your husband still notices you, but differently now. He no longer brings trinkets or compliments. Instead, he brings dry wood to keep the fire strong. He eats everything you cook without complaint. He stands beside you at market and listens when you speak. These things aren't romantic, but in your world, they are quiet forms of devotion. You are seen, not praised, not adorned, but respected. And that in its own way is beautiful. It's not the kind of beauty sung about in ballads. You're not the maiden with golden hair and eyes like the sea. You're the kind of beauty that lingers in well-worn paths and steady hands. The kind that holds a home together without ever being thanked out loud. But even now, you can feel the shift in how others view you. The men at the mill no longer steal glances when you walk past. The younger boys don't look at you the way they look at the baker's new apprentice. When you greet people in the village, their smiles are polite, warm, but not interested. It's not rejection. It's not even dismissal. It's simply a moving on. Like your face has moved from one chapter to the next, and the book has quietly turned. You don't feel sad about it, not exactly. But it does remind you of how quickly beauty passes through hands that never knew how to hold it. How the things that once defined you, your hair, your eyes, your shape, become background noise to a louder kind of identity. You are now a wife, a neighbor, a woman who makes good soup and always has thread for mending. And yet there is comfort in this shift too. Because the pressure has eased. You no longer wake each morning wondering if your skin is smooth enough or your hands soft enough. You no longer try to tuck yourself into someone else's idea of loveliness. You've found your own rhythm, your own way of being seen. You've also begun to notice things that once escaped you. You notice the beauty of women who are older than you, how their faces carry whole histories in a single glance, how their hands move with perfect grace even when shaking from age. You begin to understand that the softness you once thought was beauty was only one part of it. There is also sharpness, strength, silence, patience. And then there are the girls who are now where you were just a few years ago. You see them trying so hard, adjusting their veils just right, checking their reflections in buckets and windows, laughing too loudly, then blushing when caught. You want to take them aside and tell them it's okay. You don't have to work so hard to be seen. But they wouldn't believe you. They will learn just like you did that beauty is not something fixed, not something granted or lost or stolen. It's something that changes as you do, something that slips from one form into another, like water moving through the shape of every vessel it fills. And you've become something solid now. You've become a woman who still walks with quiet pride, even if no one turns their head to watch. A woman who combs her hair before sleep, not for vanity, but because the ritual soothes her. A woman who stands at the center of her home like a column, unadorned, uncelebrated, but necessary. The candlelight flickers on your face as you lean over your stitching that evening. You're working slowly, methodically on a new hem. Your husband is snoring softly in the corner. The fire is low. Your hands are tired. And your heart is full, not with joy exactly, but with something quieter. Something like peace. You pause your needle, stretch your fingers, and lift your face to the warmth of the flame. The light catches in your eyes, and for a moment you imagine yourself from the outside. What would they see a woman? A girl no longer. A life in motion. Not beautiful in the way the poets wrote, but beautiful in the way mountains are silent. Strong, still changing, even as they appear to stay the same. You're 18 now. No longer new to marriage, no longer a mystery to your neighbors. You are known by your voice, your walk, the rhythm of your steps on the wooden floor. Children call your name easily. Old women nod to you with a kind of camaraderie that feels both comforting and inevitable. You've grown into your space like ivy over stone, not fast, but completely. And your face, so carefully measured and speculated over when you were 13, is now less of a topic. Not because it has changed too much, but because people have stopped looking at it in the same way. They see you now. Not just the outline of your features, but the habits and stories that live behind your eyes. Beauty for a woman your age is no longer a question. It's a memory. Or at least that's how the village treats it. They speak of beauty as something belonging to the younger girls, the ones who've only just tied their first braids or started wearing their mother's shoes. She's lovely, they whisper about the miller's daughter. She'll have no trouble finding a match. You remember when they used to say that about you. You remember how you used to wait to hear it. Now they speak differently about you. She keeps her home well. Her husband's done better since the wedding. She's steady. She's kind. These words are not about your appearance, but somehow they feel more precious. They are the beauty you've earned, not the beauty you were born into. And yet there are moments when you still wonder. When you comb your hair and find strands of silver catching the firelight. When your dress doesn't fit quite the way it did last spring. When your reflection in the window seems slightly softer, slightly more distant. You don't fear aging. You've seen enough to know that a woman's worth doesn't drain away with her youth. But you do wonder if people will ever speak of your beauty again. If that chapter has closed completely, you find yourself redefining the word. Beauty is now the way your sleeves are always rolled just right. The way you hum while tending the fire. The way your laughter comes easily even when your back aches or the bread has burned. The way a neighbor's baby quiets in your arms. And the way your husband leans into you at night, like your presence alone sets him at ease. These things are not visible in mirrors, but they live in your body all the same. You start noticing the small changes in other women too. Your childhood friend, now a mother of 3, walks with a limp from a bad birth, but her voice is stronger than it ever was. The widow down the lane wraps her thinning hair in ribbons that match her apron, and somehow she radiates more warmth now than when she wore flowers in her braids. It becomes clear beauty hasn't left you, it's just moved somewhere deeper. The outside world may stop saying it aloud, but your hands say it when they cradle a child. Your voice says it when you calm an argument. Your eyes say it when you notice a girl trying to hide a tear and offer her a place by the fire without asking questions. You carry beauty now like a memory you don't need to recite. It's woven into how you move, how you listen, how you stay. One afternoon, while working in the garden, a little girl comes up to you barefoot, muddy, full of questions. She stares at your face and asks, "Were you ever beautiful?" You smile, blinking slowly in the sunlight, and think about how to answer. You remember wild braids and flushed cheeks, nervous glances and stolen flowers. You remember wondering if your nose was too wide, your teeth too small. You remember aching to be seen. And now you don't ache anymore. So you kneel in the soil beside the little girl and hand her a basket of greens. You say, "Yes, I was. And in some ways I still am." She tilts her head, then nods as if what you said made sense in a way she doesn't have words for yet. And as she runs off, you sit there in the quiet garden, hands covered in earth hair falling loose from its ties, heart full of something tender and unnamed. Maybe this is what beauty becomes when no one's measuring it anymore. Maybe this is where it hides, not in cheekbones or silk or youth, but in the shape of a life well lived. And maybe, just maybe, you're more beautiful now than you ever were. The years begin to blend like softened butter in warm bread. You are 19 now, on the cusp of something new, again older than a girl, not quite middle-aged, but no longer freshly wed. The novelty has worn off. The days are long, but manageable, filled with tasks that your hands remember even when your thoughts drift elsewhere. And your face is familiar now. To you. To the village. To the mirror, if you bother with it. It is no longer studied. No longer the subject of whispered speculation. It is accepted like the weather, like the fields, like the sound of the chapel bell. You don't miss the attention. You used to think that being looked at meant being valued, that compliments meant worth. But now, after all this time, you understand that true beauty isn't something that fades when eyes look away. True beauty is what remains when no one is looking. And plenty of people do still look just differently. They look to you for advice, for calm, for how to lace a bodice when the thread keeps slipping, for which herbs to brew for cramping, or when to pull onions to keep them through winter. You're not the girl they admire at dances anymore. You're the woman they turn to when something needs doing. And somehow that feels more profound. You've also stopped hiding so much. You still wear your veil, of course. It's tradition. It's habit. But you've grown less rigid about it. At home, your hair is often down, tumbling in waves over your back as you work the loom or sweep the hearth. Your husband likes it that way, though he never says it directly. You've both grown beyond the need for flattery. You see each other clearly without illusion, without the hunger for approval. And in that clarity, there is something startlingly beautiful. One morning, you wake before dawn and step outside alone. The grass is slick with dew. The mist clings to the earth like a blanket. You walk to the edge of the pasture, not for chores, but for yourself. Just to breathe. Just to exist. You sit on a low stone wall and look down at your hands, strong, veined, familiar. You turn your palms upward and feel the cold air kiss your skin. You touch your cheek and trace the faint lines forming there. Not deep, not dramatic, just enough to show that time has passed. And for the first time, you feel no urgency to change anything. There is no pressure to perform youth, no longing to rewind. You feel planted, rooted, as if you've stepped into the full shape of yourself, and it fits better than it ever did before. You realize that medieval beauty as it was once measured was never designed to last. It was always about potential fertility obedience. But what no one told you is that another kind of beauty would rise up once all of that passed. A quiet kind, a powerful kind, the kind that no longer depends on someone else's gaze. You walk back toward the house and the rising sun filters through your hair. Your husband is chopping wood in the yard. He looks up just for a second and nods to you with a soft grin. Not because you're radiant or adorned or blushing with youth, but because you're you. The woman who has shared his table, warmed his home, laughed at his worst jokes, and made this place into a life. And that too is a kind of beauty no poem could ever capture. Inside, the fire is still glowing faintly from last night. You stir it gently back to life and the light spills across your face. You don't turn away from it. You let it land where it may. You let yourself be seen, not as a girl, not as a bride, but as a woman whose beauty has moved far beyond the surface and now lives in the way she carries herself, the way she keeps showing up every day with tenderness and grit no matter who's watching. You hum while preparing the morning meal. It's a song your grandmother used to sing, one you'd forgotten for years, until it returned unbidden, like a memory stitched into your marrow. And as the steam from the pot rises, you close your eyes just for a second and breathe in everything you've become. The world still doesn't have words for it. But you do, not beautiful like she was, beautiful like you are. You're 20 now. The candles on your table burn lower each night, and your movements are slower, but not from age, from certainty, from knowing. There is a kind of grace that comes with being settled into your body, even in a world that never quite let you own it freely. The village no longer watches you with interest. You're not the newest wife, nor the oldest, nor the prettiest, nor the loudest. You are simply there like the stone steps at the chapel, or the scent of rosemary by the gate. A fixture, a rhythm, something everyone has grown used to and trusts. And it is now, after all these years, that something surprising happens. You begin to see yourself again, not as others see you, not through the filter of expectation or tradition, but in the quiet space you've carved out at the edge of your day. At twilight, as the sun bleeds gold through the window, you finally look at your face and feel something close to recognition. Not judgment, not nostalgia, just peace. Because now, when you look in the mirror, or the sheen of a pot, or the rippling surface of the stream, you don't ask whether you're beautiful. You ask, am I kind? Am I calm? Am I still me? And the answer is always yes, or at least as close to yes as a woman in your time is allowed to be. You still hear echoes of the old words now and then. Pretty, fair, plain, good hips, strong arms. But they drift past you like smoke through an open window. They have no weight now, no sting. They belong to a world you passed through and survived. And you realize that your body, which was once judged only for how it looked, has become something far more powerful for what it does. Your hands have made meals, held infants, planted seeds, tended wounds. Your voice has calmed storms between neighbors, recited prayers, comforted the dying. Your feet have walked the same paths every day and never once asked for praise. And your heart, it has stayed soft even when the world tried to harden it. The girls who are now coming of age, the ones just beginning to tie their veils and braid their hair for the May Fair, sometimes come to you with questions. Small ones, quiet ones. They ask how you make your stews so flavorful. They ask if this dress is too tight, or if their freckles are a bad omen. They ask if they'll ever be loved. And you answer gently, not with speeches, but with presence, with a nod, a smile, a braid tied straight, a ribbon gifted from your own drawer. You tell them the things no one told you, that beauty isn't a prize. It's a process. It changes, and it doesn't disappear. It deepens. One evening, as you walk home under a sky the color of pewter and plum, you catch your reflection in the still surface of the village well. It's faint, but it's there. A woman's face. Your face. Lined by time, softened by kindness, and crowned not with flowers but with memory. And you smile. Not because you look the way you once hoped to, but because you look like someone who's lived, who's endured, who has quietly redefined beauty in a world that never knew how to hold it properly. And in that moment, you don't need anyone else to see it. You see it, and that is enough. Now let your eyes begin to close. Let the flickering candles of the past dim behind your thoughts, and feel the weight of the world slipping off your shoulders like a wool shawl at the end of a long day. You are no longer walking cobbled roads or kneeling by firelight or threading veils through braided hair. You are here, warm, still, safe. Breathe in. Let it fill you slowly. Breathe out. Let it carry the noise away. You've walked through centuries tonight, seen girlhood bloom and settle into womanhood under the weight of expectation and grace. You've stood in a village square in a stone cottage by a garden wall, and you've seen yourself in all those places. Not the polished version others demanded, but the true one, the one that changed and aged and endured. Your body may not have belonged to you for much of that journey, but your being did. Your thoughts, your laughter, your quiet resilience. That's what stayed. That's what beauty really was all along. And now, you are allowed to rest. Let the wind hum like lullabies through the trees. Let the earth hold you gently. You are not being watched anymore. There are no mirrors here, no judgments. Only the stillness you've earned. You are enough. You have always been. And you are beautiful. Exactly as you are.